Hello everyone, welcome. It is time to set up 2026. Let's talk about my plan for next year for my traveler's notebook, which will include a bullet journal, weekly planner, journal for venting and art and watercolor and all that good stuff, all in one book. I'll talk about my supplies, and I'll also talk about some tips and tricks of how to make this one book system work all year, so you don't have to switch halfway in between because you didn't like the setup. I'm also going to talk about what I didn't decide to use and why I made that decision. I will put links in the description to everything I talk about in case you'd like to get something for yourself or a gift for someone else. And I will also put timestamps in the first pinned comment if you'd like to jump back and forth between the sections. All right, so 2026, one book. How am I going to do it? Well, if you've been here before, there's not a whole lot changing. I've done a one book in the past, and most of the elements incorporated are the same. There might be a couple little differences, but it might be a good review for you. If you're new, welcome. Thank you for visiting Key Lime Ink. I talk about planning, journaling, art, anything to do with making your paper look pretty. Feel free to introduce yourself in the comments section, and for everybody, tell me what you are using for 2026. Have you decided yet? Are you still on the fence? What's your planner system going to look like for next year? All right, so the basics here, I am going to do a traveler's notebook setup. It's going to have a bullet journal, a weekly planner, and a journal that can be used for like my commonplace book, a little bit of sketching, some watercolor, and some plain old venting. All of that is in here in one book. And let's talk about all the pieces that go with it. We've got the cover, we've got the different inserts, we also have the pens and markers, we've got stickers, and we've also got some just other little supplies that make this easier. All right, so the cover, that's a really important thing with a traveler's notebook, one book setup, because if you're gonna try to stuff it all in here in one notebook and get that like pocketbook feeling, you know, I'm opening my pocketbook, you gotta have one that is wide enough to sustain all that. And I recommend having one that has a reinforced spine, because then this doesn't like pull in on itself, if that makes sense. So this one is very, very special. This is from Speckled Fawns, and I will put a link in the description to their old Etsy shop. Even though you can't order right now from it, I think it's a good way to look back at the past reviews and see what glowing things people were saying about the orders that they received. So that way you've got that trust factor there. And then you can go to her new website where you can actually place current orders. What's fun about Speckled Fawns is that you definitely know it didn't come from a factory, because it's just different every time. You know, she might have a run of a certain kind of leather and then she'll move on to a next one and you'll get a completely different look the next year. Or she'll have, you know, one that might have a tiny flaw on it somewhere and she'll give you a discount for it. The pockets will look different. You know, no two are going to look exactly alike, and that makes it a really fun experience. This one is an older style, you can tell because the logo is different, and I got it as a gift. A delightful, thank you very much, you know who you are, viewer, sent me this to just, I guess, thank me for my channel, but also she wasn't using this size anymore and she wanted it to go to a good home, and so she sent it to me. So I'm very, very happy to be using this. Thank you. If you don't want to spend that much on something custom or wait for it to be made, I understand that. So if you want to go just on Prime and get that Prime shipping, this kind is from Newestor or September Leather. They go by multiple names. But I'll put the link in the description to these. They have an A5, a standard, they have smaller ones, there's lots of choices, but they all have the same leather. They all have this reinforced spine. They have pockets. They have 4 bands, just like mine has. They have this folio pocket here in the back and a folio pocket in the front, card pockets, 1, 2, 3 of those, and a pen loop. And they do get a patina. The color is like a dark espresso, and then the pickup is kind of cherry-ish. But I've had this one for years and it's held up very, very, very well. Sometimes I used it as my daily until I kind of moved into the custom world. But I've also used these as archival. You know, I can stick up to like 6 or 8 inserts in these if I use jump bands or extension bands. So they make great archives as well. It's a good way to jump into the traveler's notebook world and see if you have any interest in it at all without breaking the bank. But a lot of times people do that and say, you know what, this works for me, I'm good, I'm gonna stay with these. And then they'll keep this one cover for like 5 years. So anyway, you can either go the custom route with something like Speckled Fawns or my dear friend Ting with Apple Pig. Those are 2 great businesses. Or you can go on Amazon and get something like this. So links in the description to all those. But I do have a standard size, and when I open it up, you'll see I've got this pocket on the front, and I love the pocket. I don't have a pen loop, instead I have the pocket, and I put the clips backwards. So I get to have my pen that I use 24/7, which we'll talk about later, and I get to have my brush pen that I use for titling and writing quotes and things like that. And they both just stay here all the time. They're always with me. So take those off, open this up, and in the front I have a folio pocket. And then I took out the things that I put in this card pocket holder because they're super personal. I tend to put things like my insurance cards and my library card and things like that. Sometimes I'll do it as a full wallet and put credit cards in here, driver's license. Or you can use them just to put fun things you want to be reminded of. I've put photographs in here before, so I have photos of my family. I have also put things in here as reminders. You know, you could have a checkoff list, or you could have the hours that places that you visit most often, the hours that they're open. For me, I go to libraries a lot and I go to parks a lot. So I could put the commonly visited places and their hours and maybe their phone number. So you can do all kinds of things with these little inserts. And they have 12 openings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 openings. They fit around your first insert like this, nestle right in there, and they're made by Traveler's Company. So I'll put a link in the description to where you can get those and what they're called, because everything with Traveler's Company has a number assigned to it. So I'll give you the card holder, its number, and a link to where you can get one. All right, then we have my first real insert, and that is my list book. In the description, there's a link to a video where I go through every detail of setting up the list book. The key for me is to have a traveler's notebook insert that has some nice sturdy pages and square grid. That's how I work. And that way I can make these nice, neat, basically tidy, organized lists. And I have things like automotive, and it has every time I get an oil change or when car registration is due. I have the beauty section, when I go to the salon, how much I spend, what I get done, whether I liked it. I have the health section, every time I visit the doctor, what did they prescribe? What do I need to do for next time? I have a section for the books that I'm reading. I have a section for happy mail, coming in, going out. What have I received that I loved from family and friends? What am I sending out? And did I send a thank you note? And I check that off. And then this is kind of the mainstay of my list book lately, and that's the movies and series section. I even have a separate bookmark for this section. That was number 2, I'm on number 5 now. My list book is not just used for 1 year. It gets carried over from year to year to year. And then I add the planners to accompany it. So usually one list book can sometimes last me up to 3 years. And I have charts like this. And in this case, it's movies and series that I'm watching or that have been recommended to me. So I'll write down the title, whoever the star is, just to jog my memory, and then what channel or streaming service it's on. And then once I've watched it, I give it a letter grade, or DNF for did not finish. And it just helps me track, what have I watched? And you know, I'm getting a little older, so I look back through some of these and go, yeah, I don't remember that movie, but I gave it a C, so yeah, it wasn't very memorable. But it's also fun when you're out to lunch with friends and you say, hey, have you seen anything good lately? And you pull this out and you look through and say, well, I gave an A to this and an A to this and an A to this. You can quickly look down through here and see what you graded an A+. So for example, Clarkson's Farm. Oh my gosh, I adore Clarkson's Farm. It's on Prime. Okay, link in the description to that too. So this is my list book, and usually I use an insert from either Wanderings or Twone, Twone, or Sovereign Gear, any of those that I can find that have square grid. And when I got these years ago, I got a stack of square grid inserts from Sovereign Gear, and that's what I just keep using over and over and over. But there are other brands. So I'll put a link to the ones where you can currently get square grid TN inserts, regular size, and they hold up really nicely over time. Okay, then we have the weekly planner section, and I keep 2 in here because one is the last 6 months, the previous 6 months, and then the next one is the current 6 months, because each of these inserts holds 6 months worth of weekly spreads. This is what it looks like when you buy it. It's from Traveler's Company number 018. Link in the description to that too. It officially has 28 weeks, and there are 64 pages. It's made with Midori MD paper, which means it takes pretty much everything without any bleed through. And I'll show you what these end up looking like. So we open it up, and I'll show you the format, and then I'll show you a sample week so you can see what it looks like once it's all filled out. So it comes with square corners. I use a corner rounder to round them because all my other inserts have rounded corners and I like for them to match. So the corner rounder is from Carl, C-A-R-L. I got this like 20 years ago at a Stampin' Up! Party, and it still works wonders. Actually, I think I have 2 of them. They may or may not still be for sale. There is a listing on Amazon. Sometimes they're available, sometimes they're not. So I'll put a link and you can check. For these, you want to do 1 sheet of cardstock or like 4 or 5 pieces of regular paper together. It likes a thicker thing to punch through, not just a one thin page. All right, and if it gets stuck, because I've seen in the reviews people say, oh, it got stuck the first time I used it, and so I could never use it again. Yeah, you can fix it. So if it gets jammed, just take a screwdriver and push like this, and it'll just pop out again. So happens every once in a while, not too often. But yeah, 20 years, still kicking. All right, so I round the corners, and then when you open it up, you've got a spot where I will put like here, I have the completed dates. And then over here on the left side, I usually put a planner, like a at-a-glance calendar for the year. And I'll put one in the front for the past year and one in the front for the next year. So I have these on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/keylimeinc, I have memberships you can join. That's lovely. Thank you to all my fantastic patrons. Or you can just buy this individually. It's like $3. And it has these in printable format, so you can put them in your traveler's notebooks yourselves. And you just trim along the cut line, and it'll give you 2 at once so that you can, you know, put one in your journal, put one in your planner, wherever you like. And I use a Staples glue tape to put these in. Anything that I'm gonna tip into journals, I use this. So Staples permanent glue tape, I use my ink rewards. So I go buy the ink for my Epson printer. I, accumulate awards. It tells me I have like $30 available, and I go online to Staples and I get a couple packs of these, and then that way I never run out. They're fantastic. They are smooth, and they always give me like this nice, perfectly smooth result, and they don't show through the other side ever. They're just They're really great. Again, I think I've used these for 10 or 15 years. Really good. The only thing I don't like about them is that I haven't found a way to recycle or reuse them, and that kind of bugs me. So if you have any idea what I can do with these when I'm finished with them, please let me know. All right, so I've got an at-a-glance planner in the front that I have made myself. Then I have that front spot where you can put the dates. Then for this section, I make a legend right here, and it's very specific. It's for medical tracking. That's what I use my first kind of overview here for. I guess you would call it an annual overview or a tracking section. I use it for medical notes. So I do things like how many hours I slept that night, you know, if I had a fever, if I took a medication or something like that, I'll note those things. And I have a symptom tracker where I have a code, you know, like S is for sinusitis, that kind of thing. So I put my legend here, and then you open it up, and I'm not showing you the finished one because that's super duper personal, but I'll write like January, February, March, April, May, June. So I get all 6 months, and it has the numbers written 1 through 31. I just take a correction tape and mark off, like this is gonna be January, so this will be February, and then I just cover up with a correction tape whatever numbers I don't need. This correction tape is Tombow Mono. Again, something I've been using for over 20 years. I started ordering these in my first office job, and one of my jobs was to order the office supplies. Like I had a personal relationship with the Office Depot dealer. That was wonderful. So I would order all the office supplies for whatever anybody needed, and then every time I would pick like one thing that was kind of like a treat to myself, that was something new to try. And I loved these so much, I ended up getting them for the whole office, and now 20 years later, they're still working marvelously. Not the same one, obviously, it's run out. But this style, they haven't changed it at all. If it isn't broken, don't fix it, right? So you can get these in packs of like 2, 4, 6, 10, whatever. I've got them everywhere. There's one in the junk drawer in my kitchen. I have said before in videos, there's literally one in my gym bag because sometimes I'll journal at the gym when I'm waiting for something. Everywhere. There might be one in my car. Tombow Mono correction tape. Okay, so January, February, March, April, May, June. And then I write out to the side like T, W, TH, F, SA, SU. So I have the days of the week to jog my memory. And then, yeah, I use it to track health. Then there's another one. There's a second round of 6 months, and I use this for forward planning. So if this insert is gonna go January through June, then I'll make the forward planning July, August, September. Then I'll put like fall 2026, spring 2027, and the rest of 2027. And then when things pop up, oh, things like you know that you're gonna need to do your car registration in, you know, November next year. Well, then there's a space here somewhere for it to jog my memory. And then when I get my new planner, I can move these items into their proper spot in the new planner, in the weekly sections. So health tracking in the first at a glance, forward planning in the second one. And then we get into the weeklies, and let me show you how it ends up looking. It's because this is the 018, it's not dated. You're gonna have to fill in the dates, but there's a reason that that's a good thing. If you get the dated planners, they have these monthly calendars going all the way down the right side, and you lose valuable space that you can use as a little bullet journal. So I get the undated so that I have this whole space on the right and this whole space on the bottom. It says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday each get their own space. Check plus in my book. And the times go 8 a.m. to 22. So it's a 24-hour clock. in the sense that if you really wanted to, you could start up here. You could use the space up here if you have early morning things. And if you have things going past 10 p.m., you could go down here a little bit into the empty space down here. But for the most part, it's going 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I'm not very persnickety about it. I don't make like exactly 10, 15 is right here. I just kind of ballpark it. If it's in the morning, it goes in the top part. If it's midday, it goes in the middle. And if it's at night, it goes in the bottom part. So planning, and then I put the weather at the top, and then I have a bullet journal on the right and just kind of notes from the week on the bottom. So let me show you how it looks. So we'll skip ahead, and through the magic of YouTube, I have one that is already filled out, and this is a sample that I made last year so that you could see how my plans look without giving out any super duper personal information. So you see me playing with this. This is an Avery Repositionable tab. They come in a pastel set. There's one that's bold colors. There's one that's metallic colors. And I have the metallic. I use the gold for movies and TV. I use the silver for my health tracking, and I use this pretty lavender to mark what week it is. And it's just like a Post-it like this. So you put it there, and then the next week you put it on, and you can just move them around like that. And they usually last a couple months, and eventually they look a little bit dingy, but they come in sets with several of each color. So once this starts looking not great, I take it out and I get a new one. And you can see that you can write on them. So I can just write with my plain Uniball Signo pen that I do everything with. I can write on that and label it if I wish. Okay, but here's how the layout works. So I take this pen. This is a Zebra Sensations brush pen. It's extra fine or super fine point. It's the one with the sapphire blue barrel. It comes to a nice fine point where you can get thin upstrokes, thick downstrokes, and you can sketch like this. You can do lettering. You can write pretty quotes. So I use it for doing the weather every day. I do it for headings in my planner and my journal, and for writing quotes. And it's really easy for beginners to use because it's such a small point. There's not that much to control. And it's like a felt tip, so it's not brushes like splaying, right? Not bristles spraying. So you just go like this and write. Let's see, this was summer. So like that. Okay, so what I do is I write in at the beginning when I first get the notebook, I round those corners, and then I write in the dates. So this was June 30th through July 6th. So 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's a little square box right there that you can put your numbers in and stay nice and tidy. It is a Monday start. If you would like it to be a Sunday start, you could put a little row of washi across there and then write the days at the top if you'd like. But I like the Monday start format. I like having the weekend together. And then I put up here, like in this case, June 30th through July 6th, and usually I write the year. And then I put the weather in, and that's after it's happened. So what I do every evening before bed is I sit down with my pen and my marker and my little TN, and I jot what the weather was. I check off when I did things that I had marked. And it's also a little bit of memory keeping as well. So it's not just what I planned, it's what actually happened. Maybe I have schedules in here for a game. I'll write the results. I'll write the score. Or if I ended up going somewhere I hadn't intended, then I can jot that in there. Or if I decided to go for a walk, I can write that in and write how many steps I had. So it's forward planning. It's also backward memory keeping at the same time. So for the weather, I put, little clouds or sun, or heaven forbid we had, a tornado warning that day. I'll draw a little tornado. If it's something really big like this, I wrote severe thunderstorms and 3 inches of rain. I'll make a note if it's something special. If it's a heat wave, you know, I'll put that it was really, really hot. Sometimes I'll go back and write the high temperature all the way through here. And you might think, why does that matter? Well, sometimes it's nice to go back, especially like with health tracking, with migraines. It's nice to be able to go back and see if there was a pattern. Okay. Also, just for memory keeping, let's say it says you're moving this week, and I write down that the highs were 99 and 100 while we were moving. That's no fun, but it's good for just historical purposes to know what was going on. So at the very top, I've got room to write about the weather. And then in those first couple lines, like around 8 and 9 a.m., I'll put things that have to be done on that day. On that Monday, the 30th, I had to make sure I checked that I paid all the bills. On that Tuesday or Wednesday, July 2nd, I had to go to the post office. On Thursday, the 3rd, Hulu had to be canceled so that I wouldn't be charged for it. That kind of thing. So things that have to be done on that day go right here. And then I plan things, and like I said, backtrack what actually happened. And we've got like that 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, mid-afternoon, and then evening. And so, for example, things like I had a Zoom meeting with Kate at 1 o'clock. I recorded 2 videos for YouTube. We had a community parade on July 5th. It's at 2 o'clock. And then we went to see a blues band at the marina, and that was at 5:30. So I just mark in just quick reminders of what those things are. Then over here on the right, I have a mini bullet journal, and this is essentially a to-do list, a reminder area. Every week I write at the top water plants, every single week. And then as the week comes, I write in things that have to be done, and I check off when I do them, and they stay blank if I didn't get it done. And then when I go to the next week, I look back at the previous week and see what I didn't do and copy it in again. And when you've copied something in for the 4th time, sometimes you finally actually do it. So it keeps me accountable. Then down here at the bottom, I'll do some micro journaling. If I get to the end of the week and I had some empty, spaces, I'll put a pretty quote. This was J.M. Barrie. Always try to be a little kinder than is necessary here. For example, here, this June 30th, July 1st, 2nd, I wrote, binge watched The Pitt on HBO. Fantastic, but traumatic. And I underlined it a couple times. It's like the West Wing in an ER. And then I switched to Northern Exposure again. So anyway, yeah, I'll do things like that. I'll write little notes about what was going on that week. Lately, we've had coyotes. I've been hearing every night, and they've come up on our security cameras. So I wrote in things about coyotes, and then I found a sticker with a coyote, and I put it down here in the corner for that week. So yeah, micro journaling. Now you'll see that I have stickers and some symbols and some colorful circles. What do those mean? So I write in exercise. So walked at the nature preserve for 2 miles, swam for an hour, walked at the Metro Park for 3 miles. I put a little circle around the word walk, and then I take one of these. This is a Faber Castell Pitt artist pen. It's a brush pen. It's pretty fine point. And the big important thing is that it's pigment based and it will not bleed through this paper. So I can use these colors on this page and you won't see it on the next page. So I just circle that so that when I look back, I can really see exercise very, very clearly. And the more green circles I get a week, the better. And then another one that I color in is if I go see live music somewhere, I will make a little musical note and then I color it in with purple. It's just a habit I got into, and I've been doing it for years and years and years. And so I can just really get a really quick look at my planner and get a feel for what was going on that week. And I gotta tell you, if I open it to a week and there's no color, Like there were no stickers to jazz it up. There were no green circles for exercise. There was no purple for live music. There was no heart for something really wonderful that happened. That's not a good week. And it really is indicative of how your health is going, how things in the world are going, to look back at how pretty this week got, or how it didn't, or it was just so busy that I didn't have time to do the pretty things. So I try to challenge myself to not go more than like a week or two at a time where it's just blah, you know? If I see that my planner has been blah for a couple weeks, I really make an effort to exercise, go hear some music, and have something heartwarming. Okay, stickers. I don't use a lot of stickers. Because this was the 4th of July, it had kind of more than I usually would. But what I do is I sit down, and I have a whole video about this. There's a whole video about setting up this weekly planner. And I'll put it in the description so that you can go look at it if you want to go step by step with me in setting it up. But what I do is I kind of look through, like this is going to go January, February, March, April, May, and June as I set it up for 2026. And just so that it doesn't all swim together, I put a couple stickers in for the biggest holidays, things like my own birthday, you know, family members' birthdays, just things that I want to remember. So I use this. I have mentioned it in so many videos. It's called the Paper House Life Organized Seasonal Sticker Book. Got all that? Paper House is the company. They're an independently owned sticker company. They are based in somewhere in New England. That's Paper House. Then we have the Life Organized is kind of the line, and the Seasonal Sticker Book is the book itself. It says number 6 because I have literally ordered these 6 times. They sent me a one for free for the first one, and I was like, this is the best sticker book I have ever seen in my life. And now it's been so many years, I just get a new one every year. And I'll go through and use some of the old stickers that were still remaining, and then I'll go in and use up some. Some years I use the same ones every week. So let me walk you through this because I think it's worth the time. Even if you've already seen this before, maybe you'll see something about it that you didn't last time. So most important thing is that if you are watching this the day that I'm posting it, these are half off right now on their website. And then I also have a coupon code for you. And down in the description, you'll find the link to the website, the link to this item, and the coupon code. So you get 50% off the book. And then you get an additional, that you can stack it. There's an additional 20% coupon using that coupon code. So they end up being very, very economical that way. The other option is that Amazon does have them. Right now, they're more expensive at Amazon, but sometimes it flip-flops. So you want to price shop both places. Let me walk you through this. So there are 30 sheets, and the first sheet is just designed to show you kind of a look at everything that they have to offer. So they're watercolor based stickers. They're beautiful little illustrations. They represent most of the major holidays, and some of them have some gold foiling. So you can see here, it's like a preview. Hello Winter, Merry Christmas, I love summer, Happy Halloween. You've got pumpkins, you've got animals wearing scarves. How cute is that? You've got a lot of snowflakes. I use those a lot. I will put in the major holidays, and then when it actually happens, I'll put the snow, you know, on the first big snow of the year, or if we get anything measurable that you actually have to go out and shovel, I'll put a snowflake. Okay, then we get into winter. So we have January 1st, and so it has one that says January, and then lots of winter themes. Then we go to February. We've got a lot of Valentine's stuff. And again, the word February and pretty calligraphy. Then we get into March. The only thing I can figure is that the person who designed this was Irish, or they're really into St. Patrick's Day, because as you can see, there are lots of St. Patrick's stickers. And there's March. And then we have a couple sheets throughout here, like maybe quarterly, that are clear stamps. Those are fun too. So there's some more for February and some more for March. Then we get into April with springtime. I love this bunny, too cute. Here's April. Then May, you think of like Mother's Day and graduation. So we have a lot of summer flowers. Here's May. Another clear set for springtime. And then we have summer, June. A lot of vacation themes. 4th of July themes. We have July and August. A lot of ice cream and watermelon. Another clear set. Then we get into early fall with September. I had already used one of the stickers. September. And it looks like they skipped October, but they didn't. It's coming. It'll be with the Halloween stuff. But you get the pumpkin pie and the pretty leaves. And then you get Halloween. And October is in there. Pumpkin spice and everything nice. And what I really like this is that it's so focused on nature and the seasons instead of you go girl. And then we have December. We get into snowy stuff, holiday stuff, a little bit of Christmas. And then things that can be used throughout the entire year. We have birthdays, habit trackers, just random party celebration type stuff, and then more of these little check-off stickers so that you can track your habits, or to-do lists, that kind of stuff. Okay, so there you go. The Paper House Life Organized Seasonal Sticker Book from Paper House. Okay. So in this case, I was setting this up for that period, and just to make the 4th of July week festive, I put this clear sticker that said Happy 4th. I put a couple of stars, and then a pretty flower that was red and blue and white. Red, white, and blue. So that's what the weekly looks like, and that's kind of the guts of this Traveler's Notebook one book setup, is that weekly planner. And I keep, again, the current one and the last 6 months, so I can refer back to it as needed. And sometimes when I get real close to the end, I'll put the next one in. Okay, then we have my journal section, and I go back and forth. The last, I don't know, probably year, I used an A5 journal separately. I used a Newestor 1917. I used a Stalogy 365. I just kind of had, you know, a commonplace book going. And as I'd fill it, I'd move on to the next one. And sometimes I just get this desire to be back in one book where it's all nice and tidy together. I don't have to wonder, where'd that notebook go? It's all right here, right at hand. And so it's important that I have inserts that can take everything. I need it to take my favorite pen, which is the Uniball Signo RT1. All the entries in that Traveler's Notebook weekly planner, all the entries in the list book, and all the written out journal entries are all going to be this pen. Uniball Signo RT1. This is 0.5 millimeter, that's my happy place, but they also have a 0.28 and a 0.38, and under a different title, they have one that's 0.7, that's more like bold. But they're awesome. They have this grip that goes all the way from the tip of the pen about halfway up the barrel, and there are no like cutouts or anything. So it's not super cushiony, but it's soft and it feels good. And it doesn't matter whether you bear down on your pen like this or you hold it up here like this. Either way, there's a place for your fingers to rest. Once you write with it, it is water resistant, it's fade proof, it's archival. People sign checks with these. It's that famous Uniball Signo ink in a retractable, comfortable format. So I'll put a link to these down below. Bonus, they are also refillable, and you can order the refills and get them with Prime shipping. Okay, so that pen has to be able to work in whatever insert I use. This brush pen that I told you about earlier has to be able to be used. Technical drawing pens have to be able to be used in here because I like doing ink and wash watercolor where I will sketch something and then paint. And of course, I have to be able to paint because I really like using watercolor in my journals. So I have found a couple of inserts that make me happy, that answer all those calls. You know, it's got to be fairly inexpensive and take all the pens and markers and paint that I like to use. And what I ended up with are Wanderings and Twone. They're both fantastic for different reasons. Wanderings has been my go-to for years. I've mentioned it many, many times. Here's what the pen test looks like. I've got that brush pen, the Uniball Signo, the drawing pen from Tombow, but I also tested things like a highlighter, a Papermate Flare, a Pilot Varsity fountain pen, the Pentel Fude Touch brush pen, a Sharpie Ultra Fine, these Pitt artist pens, a Marvy artist marker that's pigment based, and watercolors. I've got White Nights, which are more artist quality and not likely to bleed through because they're more highly pigmented. And then I have Mei Liang Pretty Excellent, which is more likely to bleed through because it's more dye-based. And when you flip this page, look at this. Almost nothing bleeds through. Just that Sharpie ultrafine marker. Everything else, you just have a little bit of ghosting. You can use fountain pens. You can use watercolor. And you can paint on both sides of the page. Look at this. So it's not my best artwork. This was a couple years ago. I just wanted to show you. But look, I painted on the next page. And again, these are fairly inexpensive, but without bleed through, you get your money's worth because you use both sides. They come with the corners already rounded. They're 60 pages. They're a sewn binding. They're available on both Amazon and Etsy. So I'll put a link to both in the description. This is a bookmark that I made myself. I just tied a bookmark onto an extra band and threw it in here. This is just ribbon, so you can mix up the colors, change colors for the season, whatever you want. So I've got my little bookmarks. So yeah, these are pretty fantastic inserts. So here's the next one ready to go for the start of January, okay? But there's another option. So Wandering's selling point is that it takes all that stuff and it's available on both Amazon and Etsy. Then you have Twone, Twone. These are also sold in a pack of 3. They're approximately the same price. They're less expensive than Traveler's Company. And the benefit with these, even though they're only on Amazon, not on Etsy, is that they're FSC certified. I actually emailed the company last week and they wrote me back and confirmed that their inserts are FSC certified, which means they're made from sustainably managed trees, essentially. They're not gonna go cut down a 400-year-old redwood tree to make your notebook, okay? They're gonna go through a sustainable process and sustainable chain of command, and they're certified. Eco-friendly. Yay, check plus. All right, so they have basically the same format. You know, you've got the rounded corners, the sewn binding, and the paper has almost exactly the same pen test result. So you can use them with watercolor, you can use them with fountain pens, and they come in multiple sizes as well. So both of these brands you can get whether you're using a little pocket size or you're using a standard or an A5. So I'm gonna put a link down below to both of these. And you can choose Wanderings versus Twone. Sometimes for me, it just comes down to which one is on sale that week. But they're both great to stock up on, okay? So that's gonna be my journal. And I just wanna be clear, I use it for everything. My way of journaling is chronological order. So if you look at my bookshelf, it's gonna have pretty much all A5 size height. That's what I try to keep to. And then I go back and forth between A5 size or moleskin large size or standard size. So the width might be different, but the height of all of them is A5. And it goes across my bookshelf, and it goes like 2000, 2001, 2002, and so on. And maybe someday I'll look back and say, well, that was dumb. I should have had different notebooks for every purpose, or I should have had different notebooks for every theme, or I should have had one that was only Bible journaling and one that is only art and one that is only venting. Maybe. But for me, the way that my brain works, the way that my brain is organized, it's chronological. So this notebook will have a shopping list. And then the next page will have sketching some flowers from a tutorial that I see on Instagram. And then the next page, I will vent about something that's going on with a friend. And then the next page will be a quote that I just found beautiful. Usually a song lyric will speak to me, and then I'll do something to illustrate it. It's all in one in chronological order. And then it goes in with my planner, with my list book, with my wallet. Easy to carry, always with me. It's my best friend. I have one more thing. One more thing. If you get to this part, please tell me in the comments section that you got to the end. One more thing. What I'm not using. So a week or two ago, I made a review of this planner called the SUNY Daily Planner. And it is very, very, very much like a Hobonichi Techo cousin without the weeks. It has the months up here in the front. It has that tracker thing at the beginning, like this. And it has the dailies. It has that thin paper that's very, very similar to Tamale River. You can see here, you can get away with a lot. You can paint, you can use fountain pens to a point. There's a tiny bit of bleed through there, but very, very, very similar to Tamale River. It even has the crinkle. What's really different about it, and what is fantastic, is that it doesn't have the quotes at the bottom like a Hobonichi has. So that's what made me all excited. I was like, oh yay, okay, I'm gonna try this, and I'm gonna do a daily planner for next year. And my idea was that sometimes with a weekly, you go so fast. When you see the whole week at a time, they just tend to blow by. And so I thought maybe by switching to the daily, I would focus on each day more. I would find more to write about from each day. I would find more to illustrate from each day. And so I bought this with good intentions. It's half the cost of a Hobonichi, so I didn't waste too much. But I got it out. I did the pen test. I kind of put it with my different journals. It doesn't fit in very many of the covers that I have, although it does fit in traveler's notebooks that are wider and can handle something a tiny bit taller than a true A5. But it was gonna be so much to carry around. It's kind of heavy. And I thought, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna leave this on my desk. This is not gonna be a part of my planning system. I just ended up finding that I wanted the tidiness of everything all together all at once. The one book. This requires me to have other books, and it's bigger and it's heavier, and so I really like the idea, but I'm not going to use it as my planner. I think I am going to keep it though, and the reason is because I'd like to keep testing the pages, and in future videos when I compare, different Hobonichis, different types of paper, or if I want to play with watercolors and just use it like as a swatch book, that might be what I do. So there's a lot of ways to use these pieces of paper, but I don't think I'm going to use it as it was intended. I can't get away from a traveler's notebook. Every time I try to go to something else, I always come back to a standard TN. It's just my happy place. So again, please let me know in the comments section what you are using for 2026. Or if you're still on the fence, tell us what you're deciding between, and maybe we can help you figure it out. This is a great community that we built here. Thank you for being here, and have a fantastic year ahead. Bye-bye.